Today on the My Bourbon Journey Whiskey Review channel, we're talking 5 rye whiskeys you need to own. Let's do this. Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. So I want to first start with a couple of honorable mentions. I'm going to start with my home state of Wisconsin and Driftless Glen. Now, this is a rye whiskey that they've created more distribution maybe over the past year or two, and you should be able to, for the most part, find this rye whiskey. Now, they've got 2 or 3 different ones, this being actually a single barrel cask strength. They also do a rye, a 51, which is a 51% rye, and just their regular straight rye whiskey. But if you can find something from Driftless Glen, definitely give it a try. Second honorable mention is gotta go to from Jim Beam, their Knob Creek. This specifically is their single barrel rye whiskey, but recently here in 2023, they have reintroduced or introduced their straight rye whiskey aged 7 years. So that was something that's really nice. And again, price point on both of these, you're looking at right around average of maybe about $40, $45. And for the Knob Creek single barrel, a little bit pricier, maybe in that $60 price range. But the new 7-year age stated is right around that $35 price point. So both in terms of what it is they have to offer are tremendous, tremendous whiskeys. And I had to get them on today's list of rye whiskeys that you need to own. All right, starting off the list of rye whiskeys you need to own, let's just go with all of the turkeys. Rather than have these done individually, I'm grouping these all as one. I think for what it is that each one has to offer, they both are offering something a little bit different and unique. Obviously, the Wild Turkey 101 Rye is another great rye whiskey that is not only sippable, but makes fantastic cocktails. So it's something I find myself not only sipping on, but utilizing oftentimes for cocktails. Now these two, the Russell's Reserve single barrel rye whiskey and the Rare Breed Rye, both absolutely incredible ryes, sipping ryes. I'm going to say most of this list is going to be with the premise of you sitting down and sipping on these, with maybe the exception of the Wild Turkey 101. But again, all 3 of these, for what it is they offer, tremendous, tremendous value for the profile that they have. You know, 1 liter Wild Turkey, probably $30. The Rare Breed Rye Whiskey, probably in that $60 price range. Same thing with the Russell's Reserve Single Barrel Rye, right in that maybe $50 to $60 price range. So all 3 of these, you cannot go wrong. And I'm going to say these are 3 rye whiskeys that you need to own. Number 2 on the list from Heaven Hill Distillery, Pikesville Rye Whiskey. This is a rye whiskey that for me still remains a little bit underrated in terms of what it is, what it has to offer. I think right at its price range of that $55 point, I think for what it is, it offers a great value. Again, from a sipping standpoint, you know, the profile on this, a little bit more candied sweet. This is going to be a little bit opposite of maybe some of the turkeys. This is a little on the sweeter side, but again, some of those sweeter rye notes, great kind of medium oak, a little bit of that orange profile that it has in it. So for me, this is a rye whiskey that I really enjoy sitting down, just taking my time. And again, at right around that $55 price point, give or take, it offers not only, I think, a great value, but for what it is you're getting, and it being, for me, a little bit undervalued or underappreciated, I think it's a great rye whiskey and another rye whiskey you need to own. So number 3 on the list, I threw Michter's Single Barrel Rye Whiskey on here because this is a rye whiskey that can appeal to an awful lot of people. So if you're someone who doesn't necessarily like a lot of higher proof rye whiskeys, you know, this one's coming in at right around that 85 proof. I think actually 84.8 proof to be specific. However, it offers a tremendous profile for what it is and at that proof. So If this is something you can find in your area, and generally speaking, this is something that you can find in your area, you know, at right around that, again, maybe $45 price point, I think it offers not necessarily a great value, but it hits a lot of demographic from the standpoint of the proof point. I think for, again, the people who don't necessarily want the high proof rye whiskeys and retaining all of those great flavors, this is a great alternative for you. And for me, it's one of the whiskeys that I think you need to own. Next up on the list, relatively new over the past 2 or 3 years to the market, the Old Forester Straight Rye Whiskey. This was something that kind of took the market by storm in terms of Old Forester releasing a rye whiskey. This is again going to be something that's on the higher malted barley side. It does offer up a slightly unique profile, so it's not going to be standard or conventional in terms of the profiles that maybe you're used to. But I think if you sit down, take your time, I believe you'll start to appreciate kind of what the profile of this. For me, you know, again, at right around that $30, $35 price point and a 1 liter bottle, I think you're getting a lot for your money when it comes right down to it. But again, what this kind of has to offer in terms of profile, I love the chocolatey notes. A little bit more of that malted barley comes through, so maybe some of those floral notes, maybe some like light citrus notes. You get into maybe some lemons, things along those lines. So it's slightly different, still retaining a little bit of that spice that's there. But again, think of it being a little bit sweeter, maybe a little bit more floral. Again, nice chocolate notes. But again, I think this is a whiskey that definitely needs to be on the list of whiskeys that you own. Last and definitely not least, from Sagamore Spirits, this just happens to be their Sagamore Cask Strength. Now, they do offer up a lower proof rye whiskey, which on its own is still a really nice kind of introductory type of rye whiskey, similar proof point of the Michter's. But again, for me, what it is that Sagamore does as a whole, in really just producing, for the most part, rye whiskeys. Again, I'm going to say this is a rye whiskey that you need to own. This is their cask strength bourbon. So, you know, what it is that they offer, again, slightly different and unique. So what Sagamore does that's kind of interesting is they're blending 2 different mash bills. So let's just say a high rye closer to a 95.5, and then I believe like a 53% rye whiskey. So they're putting both of those together to create both the kind of the perfect profile. You're still getting some of the spice from that higher rye, mixing in with some of the sweetness with that lower rye whiskey. So I've always felt that that blend that Sagamore is doing has always allowed or created this whiskey to have its own unique profile. So it's, again, something I really, really enjoy. Makes a great sipping whiskey. Again, if you want to use maybe the lower proof one for some cocktails, or again, if you want to use the higher proof one for cocktails, that's fine as well. But on its own, from a sipping standpoint, I had to have Sagamore Spirits on this list. And again, another rye whiskey that I think you need to own. So there you have it. Not 5, but actually 9 rye whiskeys that I think you need to own. Russell's Reserve Single Barrel Rye, Rare Breed Rye Whiskey, Wild Turkey 101, Pikesville Rye, Mikkeller's Rye Whiskey, Old Forester Rye Whiskey, Sagamore Rye, Knob Creek Rye Whiskey, and from the state of Wisconsin, Driftless Glen Rye Whiskey. There you go, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to another one of my videos. Really appreciate all the support. If you'd like to follow me, you can on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of those places at My Bourbon Journey. If you'd like to help support the channel and become part of the Mash and Journey Whiskey Club, make sure you check out the link and links in the description below. A lot of other good stuff down there for you as well. So again, guys, thank you so much. And remember, it's about the journey and not the destination. Cheers. And find yourself some fantastic rye whiskeys. Cheers. But I wouldn't trade it all for the world. With you I get high, with you I'm alive, with you I'm away. How do we find love in a hidden place? Let's just escape from the noise and the